Welcome to this week's edition of World Crisis Radio. This is Webster Tarpley reporting from Washington, D.C. The second wave of the massive world economic depression lashes the globe. United States teeters on the brink of bankruptcy and default thanks to a clique of lunatics and the treachery of the Wall Street puppet Obama. And in Italy, a surprise attack, a sneak attack by international speculators this past Monday has thrown Italy into the crisis previously inhabited by Greece, Portugal, Ireland, and some other countries. Now, when you add that up, a total crisis of the United States, total crisis of the euro, surely you would have to be at the level of a moron or a cretin or an imbecile not to see that this is a world economic depression of unprecedented proportions. It is a world economic depression of genocidal potential, and we cannot have business as usual. These are not market events. This is not a boom and bust cycle. This is a breakdown crisis. It is a disintegration of the entire world system. And if the euro disintegrates, which I hope can be avoided, that will certainly establish it as a disintegration. 80 years ago this summer, in September of 1931, the British pound defaulted on gold payments. That was the main event of the last economic depression. That was the thing that destroyed the international monetary system, which was used to finance world trade. It is the principal economic cause of World War II breaking out, because if commodities and merchandise cannot pass borders, then armies soon will. And we're now headed towards some kind of a chaotic breakdown in the euro unless statesmen, people who know economics, and if you want to know it, go to tarpley.net and get yourself a copy of Surviving the Cataclysm, your guide to the worst economic crisis in world history. Unless people who have these ideas, and above all a program, like my 5-point program at the top of the tarpley.net website, then the results will be measured in mega deaths. This depression is coming in 3 waves. It's not a surprise. I've told you this before. The previous depression came in 3 waves. The New York stock market crash of October 1929, which was followed by the European banking crisis of May to September of 1931. The Kreditanstalt of Vienna, the Donat Bank of Germany, everybody else in continental Europe, especially Eastern Europe, and then the main event, September 21st, 1931, the British default on gold payment, and that brings down the entire world system. We're close to such a moment right now. Between the dollar and the euro, that wipes out the world. And that will be a world depression. Don't think that if you're sitting in China or India or Brazil or some other place, that won't mean a depression for you. It will. The United States in 1929 had a very robust industrial structure, but that doesn't help you if the financial superstructure is blown away by this kind of a depression. Of course, it's better to have the industrial superstructure. And then, of course, the third wave, the last time around, was the bankruptcy of every bank in the United States, such that on the night of Herbert Hoover's last day in office, every bank in the United States had shut its doors. And when Roosevelt declared a bank holiday, he was providing cover. He didn't shut down any banks. He simply made it legal that banks had already shut themselves down. Now, comparing that, 3 waves. The first wave this time, September 2008, more or less, Lehman Brothers, AIG, Merrill Lynch, the entire Wall Street community. This had been, of course, preceded by Bear Stearns, by Countrywide Bank, by Northern Rock, by Lloyds Bank, a lot of bankruptcies in Britain that greased the skids for that, but that was the first wave. Call it 2007, 2008. Now we're in the second wave, which is the European crisis, 2010 to 2011. It started, well, you could say it started in December of 2009 already with Dubai, but then it got to be Greece in the first months of 2010, reached a peak in May of 2010, especially with the flash crash, May 10th, which was essentially the boomeranging of a strategy to destroy the euro. It was destroying the euro, all right, but it was also destroying the New York Dow, so the Anglo-Americans had to pull back. And now we're getting to the tail end. You can see that this second phase is taking a bit longer this time. It's not just a matter of 4 or 5 months, but it's a matter of a couple of years, a year and a half maybe so far. And we'll see how that goes. And then, of course, there's a third wave beyond that, and let's hope we don't see it, because the point about all this is you can intervene at any time. With the correct New Deal policies, you can stop a depression in a single day, and there's no reason to go through the agony of a deflationary crash of the kind that Ron Paul and his followers demand, that the only way to get out of a depression is to liquidate stocks, liquidate bonds, liquidate real estate, liquidate everybody. Too bad if you die. That's the Andrew Mellon solution, right? That's what Andrew Mellon proposed. Andrew Mellon, of course, was worse than Herbert Hoover. He didn't want to do anything. He wanted just to let the Depression lash the American people with its full fury, and don't you dare do anything about it, because that violates the fetish of the market. The market, of course, there is no market. We know who the market is. The market has a name. It's called Jamie Dimon. It's called Pandit the Bandit. It's called the rest of these characters in Wall Street and their counterparts in London. Let's also remember that we've got a double crisis. There's a world strategic crisis going on. The Arab Spring has ended. Has it turned into a long, hot summer of war? Quite likely. And that may be coming quicker than we think. Wars, of course, proliferating left and right. Let's just keep up. Every morning you've got to check Obama. Obama is now at war with 6 countries, certainly 6. That would be Afghanistan, Iraq, Pakistan, Libya, to be sure, Yemen, Somalia. That's 6. But now we've also got a lot of verbiage coming out of Washington that there's a 7th war going on, and that's a cyber war. So is Obama up to 7 wars and counting? And, of course, we think that U.S. forces are going to land in Somalia in the next week or so. So get yourself your copy of Black Hawk Down and get an idea of what's likely to await them. As one congressman said at the time, that George Bush decreed the U.S. Invasion of Somalia for humanitarian reasons, of course, in late November, right after Thanksgiving 1992, after he'd lost the election. Somalians, the rebels there, have real guns with real bullets, and you don't want to find out. It turns out they've also got rocket-propelled grenades and God knows what else. So the strategic crisis going together, in 1931 it also did. Remember that the British default of September 1931 goes together with the Japanese invasion of China, which began around that same time, in the same month. And that Japanese invasion of China, as it turned out, was the long-wave beginning of World War II. Now let's look at the immediate framework, just in terms of the most outrageous things that have happened. The attack on Italy, and we'll talk about this in another segment, the attack on Italy comes out of the blue. The big question for these speculators, for the hedge fund hyenas and the zombie bankers, is why Italy, why now? What's the detonator? What's the event? It's a stealth attack. There's nothing they can point to. They can say, well, it's the accumulated debris of debt, and Berlusconi, of course, and how bad he is, and the Rubacuori, and all this stuff. Doesn't add up. It's a stealth attack. It's a conspiratorial attack. And it's matched on Monday of this week. We have yet another pontificating op-ed in the Financial Times by George Soros, telling us once again the euro is faulty, it's not well designed, it needs a common treasury, it needs a common tax policy, it needs a buyer of last resort, just on the same day, right? Very interesting. And then we have this character O'Neill from Goldman Sachs, the guy who coined the term the BRICS, coming on CNBC and explaining how, with the attack on Italy, the crisis has reached a qualitatively new level. Now we're way beyond the little countries. This is now the 3rd biggest economy in Europe, and the entire euro construction is about to crash. Back in a minute on World Crisis Radio.